Hello all, I am Dr. Rizvi and this is part 3 of our video on manufacturing process. And in this video, we will discuss casting process. So let us start with the definition of casting. Casting is basically the process of producing metal parts by initially melting the metal and then pouring that molten metal into the mold cavity of required shape and size and then allowing it to solidify. On solidification, the metal part that is obtained is known as casting. Here in the image below, you can see the molten metal is poured through the ladle into the mold cavity. These are the molds and this is the ladle containing the molten metal. The casting can be classified into two types. It is conventional or it is unconventional. There are two types of conventional casting processes. They are green sand mold and dry sand mold. When the sand used contains moisture, it is known as green sand, and when it is used in dry format, it is known as dry sand mold. Unconventional casting processes are of six types. They are carbon dioxide molding, permanent molding, shell molding, investment casting, centrifugal casting, and continuous casting. Sand castings are basically used to produce large parts such as engine blocks, cylinders, etc. Permanent molds are used to produce gears housing, etc. Investment castings are basically used to produce jewelries, and centrifugal castings are used to produce symmetric objects like pipes, boilers, and flywheels. The basic features of casting are four. They are pattern and mold. Pattern is basically the replica of the part that we have to produce. It is initially developed and then placed into the mold to produce the mold cavity. Next part is melting the metal and then pouring it into the mold and then allowing it to solidify and cool. On solidification and cooling, the casting is removed from the mold and it is cleaned, finished, and inspected for the defects. There are two basic definitions in casting process. First is pattern. It is basically the replica of the part that we have to produce, and it is a model of casting constructed so that it can be used to form an impression in the damp sand. It can be made up of various materials such as wood, metal, plastic, etc. The negative portion of the casting process is called mold. It is the negative print of the part to be casted and it is obtained by the pattern in the mold and container, where the metal is poured and allowed to solidify. Later, that sand mold is destroyed to remove the casting from the mold. There are certain elements of sand mold that we will discuss through the following image. The image below here is showing all the elements of sand mold. Here you can see a line in the middle of this mold. This is called a parting line that separates the two parts of the mold. The upper part is known as scope and the lower part is known as drag. After preparation of drag, we place the pattern here and we prepare the mold cavity. We can also place cores here to make the casting hollow. This is the riser where the extra material rise and it compensates the shrinkage. Here you can see it is a pouring basin where we can pour the molten metal from the ladle. It is basically of cup shape. Following it is a sprue that connects the gating system and the molten metal enters from here. It is the runner. Runner is parallel to the parting line and this is the flask. It is metallic flask that contains sand inside it. Methods of preparation of mold. Mold can be prepared by following steps. Firstly, we will place the flask of drag on the floor and fill it with sand. We ram it with a hammer or rammer and we pack the sand, and this is done to develop the strength and to make the sand rigid within the flask. The second step is to place the pattern so that its impression is taken on the sand. Next, we set up the gating system and we place the cope flask on the drag and fill it with sand, and then we place the sprue riser in the cope and we ram the sand so that it gain the strength and rigidity. Finally, we remove the pattern from the mold cavity and our mold is ready. Few casting defects are also observed when we have finally obtained the casting through the casting process. They are gas porosity. You can see here porous holes are there. These are of gas that was entrapped during casting process. Another is hot tear. You can see here the metal is broken due to heat. Another defect is cold shut. Sometimes due to shrinkage the metal tear apart and you can see the defect on the metal like this. Sometimes it bulges out and it swells, and sometimes it get drops. Sometimes the cope and the drag are mismatched and you can see the alignment is shifted. This is called mismatch defect. Sometimes the total material does not enter the cavity and due to short pour the casting remains incomplete, and sometimes there are sand inclusions and you can see these type of defects on the surface of the casting. Sometimes blowhole are also observed on the surface of the casting and porosity like this. Thank you. Follow our YouTube channel, Dr. Rizvi channel on YouTube. Thank you.